You've reached the end of this module on setting up navigation, updating and using assets in React.js. It's now time to recap the key lessons you learned and the skills that you gained. In the module, you explored the basics of single and multi-page navigation, as well as the conditional rendering or changing of content in response to user status or choice. The first lesson covered linking and routing of components in React for navigation. Website navigation is the part of any website that allows you to browse through various pages or links on that website from a single component. And in modern website navigation, the user interface is all about functionality. You learned about the most common navigation components like the horizontal navigation bar or navbar. But of course, most websites have more complex navigation UI that include multiple navigation approaches in a single component, like combining a horizontal navbar with drop-down menu items. You learn that there's a key difference between the navigation of websites built with React versus those built with HTML and CSS. With React-powered web pages, called single-page applications or SPAs, the entire app is loaded inside a single div, so you're not actually visiting different pages like you would with hyperlinks and HTML files. That's because a single-page application, or SPA, comes with its own special implementation of anchor tags and links that give the illusion of loading different pages. To achieve this illusion of a multi-page website, you learn that you need to add the React Router library to your React projects, and you practice using it to create and implement a basic navigation route for a web page. In this lesson's ungraded lab, you used code from the lesson item titled the navbar, and you had to add another link to the existing code. After this, you learned about conditional rendering, which is necessary for React to be able to dynamically change web page content. As part of this section, you learned how to set up conditional rendering using ternary operators to write simplified if-else conditions. The second lesson focused on using assets in React. Here, you learned that assets are files that your app needs at runtime, like images, style sheets, fonts, video, or audio. You learned how developers keep assets organized in React, and about some common ways to import asset files. A common way to organize assets is to add an assets folder inside of the source folder and keep all your app's assets there. Some assets can also be placed inside the public folder. The general rule for asset storage is that if your app can compile without it, you can keep it in the public folder. In this part of the module, you learned how to use embedded assets and about the advantages and disadvantages of embedding assets, as well as about the trade-offs inherent in using asset-heavy apps. And in the first ungraded lab of this lesson, you learned how to add an image from the assets folder that had already been added to the src folder. What's more, you also learned more about using audio and video assets in an app. Here you learned how to find suitable React packages to use when working with audio and video files. And you learned about 3 ways of adding videos to your apps by serving a local video using the video element, using embedded third-party videos, or using a third-party npm package to streamline the process of adding videos to your app. Additionally, you learned what you can do to help you decide what package to use. You should check the frequency of updates, check the package's GitHub page, and perform an internet search for the package name. To help you become familiar with using such packages, you learned how to install a React Player package and use it to render a media player in a React app. And you learned how to apply common settings like automatic playback and starting volume. Your final ungraded lab of the module was to finish an already built app with a user interface that allows visitors to play bird sounds by pressing buttons. Now that you've completed the module, you should be able to describe navigation design in React, with a focus on single and multi-page navigation. Create and implement a route in the form of a navbar. Demonstrate the conditional implementation and rendering of multiple components. Explain the folder structure of a React project in terms of embedded or referenced assets. Demonstrate how to manipulate image assets using reference paths. And use media assets such as audio and video with React. Congratulations, You've now covered most of the basic concepts in React, and you're ready to complete this module's quiz and review the additional resources for this module. There's just one more module left before you complete this course. In the next module, you'll apply your knowledge by completing a mini project in React by building a calculator app.